Fables and Foibles of Wild Abundance, a permaculture homestead and education center in the mountains of western North Carolina.
With Natalie Bogwalker. Earthmoving. In some other way, though, not the way I do it. So what was awesome and what I would change about the earth moving. So this was awesome. The very first big scale earth moving that we did was the creek. See that creek that goes around the garden? So that was all buried. Like 40 years ago, someone thought it was a great idea to go to the creek and put in these logs next to the creek and then put dirt on top of it. And then what do you think that all of my flatland on my whole 7 acres, there's a little bit more, but most all my flatland is this like 3/4 of an acre that is my little bottom. And so all of my flatland was soggy. Is that very nice? No. So what we did was we unburied the creek, which was a very nice like segue into using earth moving machinery.
How did you know though that it was even there?
Because it reappears.
Okay.
And it appears before.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but I did not know that I was gonna, when we went to unbury it, that we were gonna find the logs that had been buried. And we even, it was so cool because I like came up with this route that I wanted the creek to go on because we wanted it to have curves. Because curves are better. And so we came up with this route, and when we were doing the route, on the route we found the old creek bed. Isn't that crazy? Not everywhere, but some places. It was pretty awesome. And so this was something that was really, really good. That was kind of the first stage. And I hired somebody, even though I'm incredibly cheap, and all of this was done, by the way, I didn't get like a trust fund or anything. Like this whole land project has pretty much had to support itself. And so the whole time it's like, you know, can I do this? But we started the earth moving with really small, slow solutions, and that being unburying the creek. And I hired someone rather than in my scrimping and saving, renting a backhoe and trying to operate it myself. So what I did was I hired somebody who was very good and who used to build golf courses. I mean, I don't like golf courses, but somebody who builds golf courses is very good with their backhoe. And when he was making these bank, I had already planted things like my basket willow along the stream bank, and he had control. He could get within like 2 inches of where I told him to go. His backhoe. It was amazing. So, and it was really good. Notice I had garden beds on kind of the left side here, but I didn't have any garden beds on this side when I was changing the creek. That was a very good order of operations. And so I really appreciated starting with that. And then, I mean, this is the next year. These are some serious, so we gained some confidence here. So this was another good thing, is we took all of the topsoil and made a mountain. And then changed the shape of everything, and then put the topsoil back. This is pretty scary. But it's an interesting thing when you have such a small amount of open space, because the forest is like all pretty steep. You have a small amount of open, flattish space. It needs to be pretty functional if you're going to run a school there. And so we needed, instead of having a bunch of area like this, we needed like flat spots. So this is pretty crazy. But we could, and this is the pond that we made. And we did the small pond first the year before and did this experiment to see if it would fill itself, because you know how I was talking about the Berry Creek and the water level is pretty high under the ground here, and I was like, I bet if we dig a pond it will fill itself, because when I put a shovel in the ground in this same place and I dig, then like an hour later it's full of water. So we did that small little duck pond, which was in a previous picture, and then this is an 8-foot deep, maybe someday future swimming pond. And then this is after we got done with the earth moving. And it's really important to be super on top of it with seeding and mulching. You have to have time. Like anytime you think you hire this guy, you're like, great, do these changes, I'll be working. No, you have to be with that the whole time. Very important. And then you have to have time to be able to plant cover crop, plant trees, do you see these little terraces that we put in? Like, do these changes right away because the dirt is fluffy and it will wash away. And it's also really easy to work with, right, when the earth moving is happening. So I'll come back to this, but this is a picture of that same area. 6 months after.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome? Now, is that what you typically see after a bulldozer comes somewhere? No. And why do you think that is?
Planning.
Planning! Yes, planning and activating and working. So, these are very important. Okay, so we're closing up. So, the big picture, I would say the biggest lesson of this is the most important skill you can develop when coming into building a permaculture paradise. You're going to have to work with people. And so I would say developing your communication skills is the #1 important permaculture skill you can have. And I really found nonviolent communication to be especially helpful, but there's lots of different things. So that I would say, very important. Learn from your mistakes and humble yourself. This is my good friend, actually. This is working on the straw clay project. Oh, that's at a work party. Work parties, by the way, awesome. We've set up these, I actually set it up some years ago, this rotational work party within our neighborhood. So I live in Barnardsville in this like dreamy situation where there's like 15 households of like my friends that live within 2 miles. Like, it's pretty crazy. But that wasn't an accident. And what we did was we set up a thing where we work, everybody gets like one day each year when we get to have the work party. And then we provide all the food and the libations and the yumminess and all the materials, and then everybody just comes and helps. It's really fun. I highly recommend it. So learn from your mistakes and humble yourself. Very important. Maintenance. Don't forget about maintenance. It's kind of the dirty little secret of permaculture. You know, you read these permaculture books. You know how many of these, like, oh God, what's the name of the guy who put out there's a 2-book series that like goes through like every species you could think of. Yeah, you know how much he's actually done on the ground?
Nothing.
So when you're reading these super inspiring books, I didn't say anything about it. When you're reading these super inspiring books that are like, permaculture, it's the answer to everything, and you just like do this planning, and then everything just like maintains itself. Do you think that really happens?
No.
No. I'm glad you all are realists and can see this. So whenever you plant anything, keep in mind that it's going to require maintenance, and there's some choices you can make. Like, do you think a mulberry, which you can coppice to the ground every like 5 years to keep the berries nice and close to pick, do you think that's as much work as pruning an apple tree every year? This video was made by Wild Abundance, where we teach skills for self-sufficiency,
like homesteading, permaculture, woodcraft, wild foods, and tiny house and natural building, all in the beautiful mountains around Asheville, North Carolina. Check out wildabundance.net to learn more about our classes and consultations.